Hi everyone, my name is Lynn Pelletier, and today I'm going to give my critic review on the 1950s animated film Cinderella. I entitled my piece Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. Let's go ahead and get started with some introductions. Walt Disney was the producer of Cinderella, and we have a picture of him right here. Some of the directors for the animation were that of Clyde Geronimi, Wilfred Jackson, and Hamilton Lusk. The major writing credit due is for Charles Perrault. He did the original piece, which we will talk about in just a moment, and all other writers listed helped make the 1950s version available. Now to get to our characters. Eileen Woods, she was the voice of Cinderella. We got Louis Van Rooten, he was the king and also the voice of the Duke. We got Grisella and Anastasia. Grisella was Rhoda Williams and Anastasia was Lucille Bliss. We got Claire Dubray, She was listed on IMDb as playing Claire Dubray. We got Jacques and Gus. Jacques, Gus, and Bruno the dog were voiced over from James McDonald. We have Verna Felton, who played the oh-so-beautiful fairy godmother. And then we have the treacherous stepmother, who was played by Eleanor Audley. Now I have two people that we need to give the position of Prince Charming to. We have William Phipps, who was the talking voice of Prince Charming, and then we have up in the corner Mike Douglas. He was the singing voice of Prince Charming. Over here we got June Foray. She was the voice of Lucifer the cat. And then Don Barclay was the doorman. What about it? What about Cinderella? Well, Cinderella is a child's purpose film, but it's a classic at any age. The genres listed for Cinderella, there are quite a few of them. We got animation, family, fantasy, musical, and also romance. In the 1950s original movie poster, in the corner it stated color in Technicolor. Unfortunately, this wasn't the picture of the poster. This was the movie cover, I believe. And Walt Disney produced the film, so naturally the studio used would be Walt Disney Studios. Literature before film. This is true. Cinderella was actually a literature before it became an animation. Charles Perrault, who I stated before in the writing credits, he wrote the piece in 1697. I'm not going to try to butcher what he had it listed as. I think it's in French. But what it translates to is Cinderella or the Little Glass Slipper. Box office and budget info for the movie. The budget itself was $2.9 million. The opening weekend in 1981, there were 500 screens, and that brought in $1.3 million in the U.S. In 1987, there was only one screen, and it brought in $5,165,881. We have some gross information listed. In the U.S., total gross so far is $86 million and growing. The rental profits in the U.S. is over $41 million, which is astonishing for an animation. The 1950 release countries. In the U.S., there were multiple places that it was released in 1950, so I didn't list them all, but some of them were Boston, Chicago, New York City, and then I just wrote US, A for the rest of them. Some other countries not related to the USA, you got Paris, Brazil, Netherlands, Australia, Denmark, and there's quite a few other ones that are listed as well. The big question, should I or should I not see Cinderella? My personal opinion is yes. Cinderella is an amazing classic. By the end of the presentation, hopefully it will make you want to see the movie if you haven't, or, agree that it is a good classic. The thesis. The thesis behind Cinderella is a true rags to riches, a maid to a princess. It's a happily ever-ending story for little girls everywhere to adore. In the movie Cinderella, there was many magical aspects of the movie, too many to actually list at one time. So I chose my 3 best, which is music, color, and of course the happily ever after storyline. Let's get started with the music portion. Cinderella, Eileen Woods, had a very harmonious melody to her voice when she sang. Whenever it was combined with Mike Douglas, the singing voice of Prince Charming, it was magical. I do have a clip of So This Is Love from the movie Cinderella, when Cinderella went to the ball and her and the prince danced away. That the 2 characters are singing together, but yet their lips aren't moving. It's just an over voice of music that they're dancing to. My heart has wings, and I can fly. I'll touch. Beautiful, right? Who wouldn't love it? Not all music in Cinderella is so beautifully mastered. We have the evil stepsisters and stepmother in this scene noted as the music lesson for Oh Sing Sweet Nightingale. They butcher it, but Cinderella comes in and she helps make it a little better. Note that it's so horrible, Lucifer, the evil cat, can't even take it. He has to leave. And Cinderella comes in for the save. Thank God my ears needed rescuing. Now, there is another group that you want to love, but you know that they aren't that great with the singing. We got our little micey friends here that sing the working song as they help Cinderella out by making her dress for the ball. I personally think they're better than the Evil Steps. Some extra tidbits on the music for Cinderella itself that I noted is the music within the film is not only harmonious, entertaining, and majestical. The music is set to make you understand how Cinderella feels when something as treacherous as being at her ugly steps beckon call to falling in love with the prince, which is very true. Also, it wouldn't be a fairy tale without a fairy godmother. We have the scene where Cinderella comes into first contact with her fairy godmother, and the ever so popular Bippity Boppity Boo song comes intact. The tones of within each song is molded perfectly into the love, depressed, and overjoyed scenes to help identify the mood, if not apparent through the animated characters themselves, which music does play a big role in any film that does have music available to it. Moving on from music to color. In the movie Cinderella, although it was released back in the 1950s, when most directors were starting to dabble in color for their films, Walt Disney had already released animation in film dating back to 1937, which was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Then you have the darks, the lights, and neutrals instilled all throughout the film to help bring it alive as well. Noted here, Cinderella's color animation was done with Technicolor. I have a little black and white versus color animation set up here. Just a couple bullet points to present. The sincerity of being a maid within your own house would be perceived harsher if it was in black and white. Probably not as bad, but let's see what it said about in the color animated section. The fact of Cinderella being a prisoner within her own home is obvious, but doesn't come off as cruel as it could be. If you have, she's got her little pink and white gown, then she's got her colorful aprons, and it's not as harsh as if it was just in black and white. You would see more pain. The magic coming from the fairy godmother wouldn't have as much fairy-loving ability for little girls if they can't see the transformation difference in color. The fact of being able to see an orange pumpkin turn into a fairy tale white and gold wagon seemed better than imagining it through black and white, which some kids nowadays don't have the greatest imagination with electronics and everything now, that imagining the gold crested molding around the doors and the pretty little loops and everything on this white, gorgeous, luxurious wagon, I imagine it would be a little difficult if it was black and white. I would just picture it as a black and white wagon myself. And the last noted parts about color. The color clarity within the 1950s film Cinderella is astonishing. It's not dramatically pixelated and are perfectly streaming together. You don't see all the little animation dots within the film. You just see overflow, and it's just perfectly smooth. The magical pumpkin into a carriage and mice into horses and the dog to the coach person that drives the wagon. Even that was smoothly generated and no sloppy transitions when going from animal to fairy tale, from fairy tale back to animal. The storyline. Alright. Cinderella is pretty actually basic. Anybody who watches it can pretty much pick up on the story itself. Cinderella was living with her father, and there was no mother. So the father didn't want her to be without a mother and married the evil stepmother with her stepsisters. The father suddenly died one day, and Cinderella was left with her evil steps to remain in the house that she grew up in as their maid, and pretty much do whatever they needed her to do. Cinderella's friends were pretty much just the mice that lived within the walls of the mansion, and the woodland creatures that would come to her door, like the little the horse that they had the dog, then they had little birds that would fly in and wake her up in the morning and help her get her hair ready. Cinderella was able to sneak away to the ball one day where she was able to meet the prince. They danced away from the ball, falling in love with one another every second they were together. They felt a connection, and when they went in to kiss, the clock struck midnight and Cinderella dashed away. When Cinderella was fleeing, she ran down the stairs, and as every little girl knows, that little glass slipper was left behind just for the prince to find. He proclaimed that he would find the love that he found at the ball with that one glass slipper. He was true to his word. He rounded up his gang, and they went out, and every single house they went to, they would make sure that every female tried that slipper on, and he would once again reunite with his love. When they arrived to the chateau where Cinderella was, the evil stepmother locked her in the room to where she couldn't come down because she knew that it was Cinderella that he was looking for. Cinderella was able to get away, and she came down, she tried the slipper on, and of course, magic, it fit. The prince and his princess were reunited, and he swept her away. Although Cinderella started out as a ragged housemaid prisoner, she found love and became a rich princess. Cinderella thrived through it all, a good moral to prove that there is a happy ending to even the saddest of stories. What a better way to help show little girls everywhere that, true love will come. You just gotta wait. The real question, will you bippity boppity boo? Will you bippity boppity do or don't? Cinderella is a beautifully mastered classic that still to this day gets re-released all over the world. The music is melancholy yet jubilant. The color is magnificently animated, and the happily ever after proves that even when you are going through trials and tribulations, there's still always a happy ending. If a maid can become a princess, rags can turn to riches, then you can do anything you set your mind to. I gave Cinderella a 5-star rating. I loved it when I was 3, and I still love it at 27. I hope you'll take a chance on a little bippity boppity boo magic yourself and indulge in the wondrous life of Cinderella. The end.